CBS Sports welcomes you to Storrs, Connecticut, the home of the #1 team in the nation. The UConn Huskies taking on 9th-ranked Michigan State. We've just moved inside of the 10-minute mark of the first half, and the Huskies lead 17-15. Jim Nantz and Billy Packer courtside at Gamble Pavilion. It's Michigan State's All-America guard, Mateen Cleaves. That was a three that would have given them the lead. Early in this game, Michigan State went on an 11-point run to lead 11-2, making their first 5 field goals. Then the Spartans cooled off, making only one of their next 10 shots from the field. And now it's an 18-15 UConn lead with 9:10 remaining first half. Huskies in the home white, kick it out, penetration, and a foul called on Cleaves. Players on the floor right now as you look at the Michigan State lineup. Cleaves, their All-America, has not scored so far. 0 for 2 from the field. Meanwhile, for UConn, Hamilton and Freeman, along with Vasco Moore and El Amin. It's the starting 5 for the Huskies. Billy, your thoughts on the first 10 minutes of action here?
Well, Jim, both of these clubs, as you mentioned, ranked in the top 10 in the country, both extremely athletic, and they like to push the ball down the floor. Do I need any better example?
Yeah, right
there.
On your cue.
Both of them love to push the ball down the floor. They're really capable of it, and we're seeing some of the strongest guard play that we'll see in the country from both of these basketball teams. Really deep at that position.
Freeman scores in the post.
You're talking about the team picked to win the Big Ten, the team picked to win the Big East, and they certainly are capable of it.
Off of Hudson, UConn ball. Not only that, but the 2 players that received the most consideration on the preseason All-America team, Richard Hamilton, received more votes, in fact, than any player in the country. The Big East Player of the Year a year ago from UConn, and Mateen Cleaves, last year's Big Ten Player of the Year.
The matchup, Cleaves going against El Amin, has really been interesting to watch. Now he's over on Moore.
Couple of subs in now for the Huskies. Mooring has come in along with Juan, number 34. Hamilton double team, lost control of it, and it's off the Spartans.
I thought he got fouled twice on that one, Jim, but no call made on the play. They're letting them go after each other.
So the under-8 timeout has arrived on the floor here in Storrs, Connecticut, with the Huskies leading by 3. We're back in Storrs, Connecticut. The season premiere of college basketball here on CBS. Jim Nantz and Billy Packer as we begin our 18th road to the Final Four here, on our way to St. Petersburg and eventually the national championship game March the 29th. We have 2 teams here that like to think they would be there, Tropicana Field, come late March.
I think they're both capable, Jim, and they have so much depth. They have great backcourt play, good solid rebounding on both teams. And one of the things today will be interesting is Connecticut's holding teams down to 37%. Michigan's been shooting 51%. Something's got to give there, and so far Connecticut's been able to shut them down, with the exception of that explosive start that Michigan State had.
Ricky Moore had to call a timeout, couldn't inbound the ball. So the Huskies will huddle once more. Who can forget back in 1990, though, when UConn took on Clemson in the East Regional semifinals, an epic finish.
Scott Burrell on the toss, the great former pitcher, threw a perfect strike
to Tate George, and that won it. The Huskies advanced only later to be eliminated on a buzzer beater on the other side. Next time it was Duke and Christian Laettner.
Right, 2 days later, it goes from the perfect ending to a memory that Jim Calhoun certainly doesn't want to have to bring back.
Mooring loses control of it. Michigan State strips. Tom Izzo's team now penetrating with Cleaves.
Great play.
And well, will they count it?
It's got to count.
Jim Burr.
Jim, there's where that incredible strength that Cleaves has allows him to go down on the inside. Now, he suffered 2 injuries over the summer, which I think has made him a different player than the tremendous summer physically he had the year before. Now, there you see that strength, being able to go in there on Juan and still get the shot off. But this young guy not being able to practice but with the dedication he had the summer before, really is off on his shooting, and you can see it's taken away a lot of his confidence for the rest of his game.
Made only 3 of 17 from the field on Wednesday night in the loss to Duke. Freeman fires up a 3.
Not the shot that Connecticut wants at this point in the game.
Cleves snaps it ahead. Now he'll take the jumper. Too strong.
Good timing by Hudson.
Puts it back. He's off to a nice start. Hudson with 8.
Gives up some inches inside in basically their power forward position, Jim, but he has great timing.
Hamilton to Voskuhl. Give the assist to the All-America, and Voskuhl cashes in.
Here we see this matchup. Two of the strongest point guards in college basketball. Elamine and Cleves. A lot of banging out there between the two. Klein has to come and meet the ball. See, there was Cleves not ready to take the shot that he had that was easy.
A little uncertain.
Yeah.
Jumper made by Antonio Smith.
His former high school teammate. 2 years ago, the Big Ten's leading rebounder. Still one of the premier rebounders in the country, despite giving up size most of the time at his position.
Tough pass inside, and ball denied. So Michigan State on the steal with the lead, looking to add. And Smith again with the basket for the 3-point advantage.
Well, there you can see two guys used to playing basketball with each other. Smith kept those hands right up. Perfect lead pass inside by Cleves. If you're not making the shot, you can still hand the ball off. Double screen outside. Good hedge move by Smith.
Hamilton got the 3-pointer to tie it at 25.
Little mental breakdown by Peterson there. You're guarding Hamilton. You cannot afford to let him go, even though you're trying to help out some. He's the premier scorer for Connecticut. Gonna let somebody else show that they can beat you.
Hamilton now only 2 of 8 from the field. And taken away by the Huskies. Here comes Hamilton. And a whistle outside. Ed Hightower says outside. Good officiating crew here today. Ed Hightower, Jim Burr, Tom Rucker.
And a smart foul, Jim, when it took place, because if he waits for one more dribble, there's the strip on the way up. Elamine, here's Hamilton coming down. A perfect time to foul the guy. If you're going to go for the steal, one more dribble, and it's part of the shot.
His first personal foul, 6th on the team.
Michigan State hasn't used the zone much at all today, except on these out-of-bounds situations. They play a really strong matchup zone.
That was the 6th team foul. The next one will be a 1-on-1 situation for the Huskies.
Look for Hamilton and Elamine against this zone, particularly cross-court passing.
Voskuhl wanted it for the jumper. Too strong. Granger swipes it away.
Peterson running, looking for the lob.
Bell, jumper.
Charlie Bell.
27-25. Michigan State under 5 minutes to play first half.
Jim Bell really coming into his own as an all-around player. Terrific defender, was a great high school scorer, then went primarily to defense. Now his all-around game is there, and he is an outstanding rebounder for a guard, maybe as good as there is in the country.
Elamine way out there with a 3. He made one earlier in this game before you joined us. Cleves tries one of his own, and a nasty fall. Nasty fall there by Saunders.
Snapping to the head, Jim, when he came down, just went right underneath him, and I think he's going to be all right, but he took some fall there. And you can see again, Jim, one of the things, Cleves on that jump shot just doesn't stay with his release, and here we'll see that tough fall and where the head snapped right back. There's that jump shot, just not on the mark for Cleves. He's got to have that to keep people honest. Cleves now 1 for 5. Oh, a tough fall there.
And this is a tough kid, too. Edmund Saunders out of Waterbury, Connecticut. Sophomore has given them 8 points and 8 rebounds a game off the bench.
Been playing 20 minutes a game, Jim, and it's really difficult with Connecticut's stats so far. They haven't played the type of competition that Michigan State has, so you won't find out whether that 20 minutes is the same kind of 20 minutes you'll get as they go deeper into their schedule. He's getting up. Great to see. But that was a tough fall.
Yeah, they've played teams, Billy, like Quinnipiac, Richmond, always a tough out in the NCAA tournament, Hartford and Wagner. So there's some games there could have run up some big numbers and did run up some big numbers and got a lot of people off the bench some big minutes.
Yeah.
You can get complete basketball coverage, college coverage on CBS Sports Line. And next week, don't forget to vote in the top 25 fan poll, CBSSportsLine.com. And for America Online, a keyword CBS Sports Line.
Here's Bell now on Elamine, figuring that he's going to handle that ball a lot more. That puts Peterson on Hamilton.
Hamilton dumps it inside. Freeman cashes in to tie it at 27.
Hamilton's making some really good looks today on the inside with his passing.
8 points for Freeman, 3 assists for Hamilton.
Kelly in the game for the second time to spell Cleves.
Kelly, who had to sit out last year with a broken foot. Three-point jumper, very pure for the senior, and last holdover from the Judd Heathcote era at Michigan State.
He had 114 assists 2 years ago, so he's a young man that's had a lot of experience in a tough league, so not surprising he come off the bench and score like that.
Elamine matches it at the other end, 30 all.
What I love about that, Jim, is that he's got great range with that jump shot and can do it without the dribble, so he kind of freezes the defender.
Kelly in and out. Hamilton had boxed out, had the position, takes the middle, gives it up to Freeman in the lane, and a whistle and a charge.
Pretty good change off that pass by Freeman. Here's the pass. Watch this catch, jump, stop, change without walking. Good move.
2:59 before halftime, 30-30.
Well, Jim, when you have a Conference Player of the Year and one with one of the smoothest strokes in college basketball in Hamilton, watch how Connecticut tries to get him open. Elamine goes. When he leaves, obviously the defense has to be aware of him. Great time to come up and set a solid screen for Hamilton to flare out to the side and hit that patented jumper. Now here we'll see this flare last year in the NCAA tournament for Hamilton. Solid screen, Bosco comes over, Hamilton flares out, takes the jumper right over the top of Carter for the three. Terrific perimeter shooter.
Carolina and UConn played for the East Regional Championship with the Tar Heels advancing to the Final Four, but Michigan State was also in that regional down in Greensboro. And they, in fact, were knocked out by Carolina in the Sweet 16. Michigan State made its way to the round of 16 with 2 wins nearby Hartford.
Nice change by Granger without walking in the inside. Bosco, 2 big screens.
What a dribbling show, though, by Elamine.
Well, just as I said, Cleves is not afraid to go inside. Neither is Elamine because of their power in their shoulders. But that was set up by terrific screening by Bosco.
Bosco over the back, though, at the other end with his second. Coming up on Pennzoil at the half, Tim Brando back in our studio. We'll get you caught up on all the scores and highlights, plus an update on that accident from the Army-Navy game. That's all coming up on Pennzoil at the half.
Jim, I've seen Michigan State play now against really some solid competition. Connecticut, Temple, and Duke. The Temple game, they pulled off to a big lead similar to today. Duke, they were way behind. But this is a solid basketball team, and of course, in both of those games, they played very competitively, losing that Temple game in an unusual way at the very end, and came back, and Duke just held them off.
Stripped away, Suleiman Wan with a good defensive effort.
And what Jim Calhoun's trying to do with Wan and Bosco is to get 30-some minutes a game out of the two of them. He wants 20 points. I don't think he'll get that, but I think he can get 15 points and probably 10, 12 rebounds a game out of those two, which is pretty good for a center position. Here's that zone defense now by Michigan State, matching up.
Banks at home does Freeman, leading the Huskies with 10. Elamine has 9 and a turnover at the other end.
Now what Cleves has to do there is understand who's catching the ball. You can't expect Granger to catch that ball at full speed with his hands So Cleves has got to be a little bit more judicious as to making that pass and knowing that there's only a few guys going to catch it on the run and make the completion.
UConn 5-0 on the season. Fresh off a win against Washington in the grade 8 this week. Michigan State 4-2 with the losses to Temple and Duke. Raymond rejected but a foul call. Now the Huskies have a 24-game home court winning streak. They have 2 home courts, though. Hartford Civic Center and here at Gampel Pavilion. Here at Gampel, they've won 12 in a row. Goes back to January of '97, 23 months ago, when Providence beat them here.
Well, Jim, of course, we remember the last time they were here with a great roll going in #1,
That's
and the guy named Kerry Kittles came in and played what I think is probably the best individual regular season game we've ever had on CBS. He was just sensational on this very floor in the upset Villanova over #1, then Connecticut.
One more for Freeman. They had just been elected. This is February of 1995. UConn had been elected #1, rated #1 in America, then went out and beat Georgetown on the road on a Monday night to return home, play a home court game as the #1 team in the country for the first time. We were here and they lost to Villanova. So this is the second time they've ever played at home, ranked #1 in the country.
At that time, their women were #1 as well, just as they are now, too. So obviously great tradition here at this school.
Kelly Bell short, tipped out of bounds, and it's UConn ball. Yes, the UConn women's team is ranked #1 right now as well. No other school ever has had both the men's and women's program ranked #1 in the same week, except for UConn. Happening this week for the second time. Tom Izzo, 4th year, Big Ten Coach of the Year a year ago. In fact, the Associated Press National Coach of the Year as well.
He's right now wondering where is he going to get some scoring. They've kind of gotten away from trying to get the ball down inside, and I think that's got to be their answer for a while. They're counting too much on the perimeter.
El Amin, he feels it. You can see it way out there. UConn on an 11-2 run, fueled by El Amin's outside shooting. It's their largest lead, a lead of 6. 22nd timeout called by Michigan State, which enjoyed an early 9-point lead. Billy, the rule changes this year.
Well, not many, obviously, but the held ball goes to the defensive team. We haven't seen this so far in this ball game, but it's been very prevalent in the games that I've watched so far this year. And that inside position on the free throw line, moving it up 10 inches, kind of helps away from that banging and pushing down underneath the basket on a free throw.
The impetus to change this rule right here, the tie-up situation, was last year's game in the semifinals, national semifinals, Stanford and Kentucky. Stanford forced the tie-up, but the arrow belonged to the Wildcats. Stanford would have had the ball 1 down in overtime with 6 seconds to go, had the rule been what it is right now.
Well, you can see how comfortable Tubby Smith was with the call, knowing that he had the arrow. This year, obviously, that would not be the case. Stanford would have been shooting for the win.
Klein, a three-pointer, rattles out. And Freeman hauls it in. Tom Izzo, by the way, got burned on that call a few times in the Temple game. He's not really in favor of it. He'd like to see, in a tie-up, just the old jump ball brought back.
Well, Jim, I think one of the things, there's that jump shot without any bounce at all.
Juan put back. Saved, out of bounds, on the line first. Hamilton was on the line, Michigan State ball.
Well, Jim, in that particular game, and it was kind of funny, I talked to the people at Michigan State after that Temple game and said, you know, what's going to happen here now? The coaches are going to teach the double team to try to get those held balls. What players have to do is one of 2 things. Get very strong with the ball, using their elbows and upper body to break free, and also to be looking for that free man as quickly as possible to get it out of there. You can't count on the referees to protect you all the time. And if there are 2 men double teaming you, that means there's got to be somebody open. You can initiate your break in a hurry.
Last possession of the first half. That's what the Spartans would like to think. Down 6.
Calhoun packing back in a zone, with the exception of Cleves being played tight man-to-man out front.
Cleves.
Now they pick up everybody man-to-man. Nice move by Jim Calhoun.
Smith with 4 to Peterson. Got the roll and bounce.
There's good hands underneath.
So Peterson's basket makes it a 4-point game at halftime. El Amin with 12 to lead the way for the Huskies, along with 4 assists. Jim Calhoun's team's in front. So the end of the first half with the score: Connecticut 38, Michigan State 34. Tim Brando will be along with Pennzoil at the half right after this message and a word from your local station. We are back on campus at UConn. 10,027 on hand as #1 UConn leads #9 Michigan State. Jim Nance, Billy Packer. Billy, you've had a chance to kind of talk a little bit about the components of the Final Four this year.
Well, Jim, talking about the Final Four chemistry, some of the things I think are really necessary. Solid guard play. We're seeing that from both of these two teams today. Ability to neutralize on the boards. Both of these clubs can do that. Defend and shoot the three well. We see both of these teams able to do that. A coach and a team that gets in sync, and that's something we won't see until March. Now, some things I think that are overrated to get to the Final Four are the need for a dominant center. It's been a long time since the Patrick Ewings, the Kareem Jabbars took teams to Final Fours. Late season momentum, that obviously can be thrown out the window. And of course, that mature seniors. You know, we see as many clubs with young kids that make the move as we do with older kids. Here's some of the teams that I think have those ingredients. The best of the West. And we'll see tomorrow, Stanford, Maryland. That ought to be interesting. The guys from the Heartland, Michigan State, one of those clubs right there that I think can be there at the end. In the East, Connecticut, a team we've got right here, Cincinnati, Syracuse, and Temple. And probably the beast of them all, Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina, Maryland. That South has really got some that you see having the ingredients to be Final Four type clubs.
And it's already, though, been such a wild start to the year, with Ohio beating Syracuse last night, Florida Atlantic winning at Oklahoma State during the week. And it's just been some bizarre happenings on the court early in the season.
You see so many teams capable of win. That's the first time in 23 years Syracuse won't be in the finals of the Carrier Classic. Cleves still having trouble from the outside.
El Amin spins free from Smith. Dishes, and Freeman with 2 more.
Smart play by Freeman to use that rim to go to the other side, take away the defenders.
Cleves penetrating.
Jim, Cleves right now is 9 for 41 in the last 4 games. He is really losing a lot of confidence on the offensive end.
Well, look at the Charles Schwab halftime stats. 3-point shooting. UConn 4 out of 11, thanks to El Amin making 3 from behind the arc, 3 out of 6.
Well, Michigan State shot 50% as a team in that first half. A lot of that's attributable to the great start they got off to, but Cleves is a guy that's got to pick it up offensively with a shot. 5 seconds.
Yep, got him.
Nobody coming to the ball.
Talking about Cleves' shooting troubles over the last 4 games. He's 1 for 7 in this one.
Hamilton at 2 for 8, so the 2 All-American candidates having a rough go from the outside.
Push off away from the ball. Called on UConn's Ricky Moore, his 2nd. Jim Calhoun, 4-time Big East Coach of the Year. He's taken the Huskies program to 3 Elite Eights.
Well, the only thing missing in his outstanding career, Jim, is that Final Four appearance and national championship. He's the only coach in the history of the college game to win 250 games at one school and over 200 at 2 schools. He at Northeastern, he had 200 wins. And here he's at over 250. He's actually with a 250-250. Only guy in the history of the game. That's amazing.
They called that last whistle at this end on Freeman, his 2nd, not on Moore. Hamilton steps in for the jumper. Yes.
Soft, smooth shot.
UConn with its largest lead of the day, 10-point lead for the Huskies.
Jim, what I think Michigan State has got to do to get back in this game is to start going down inside a little more. Hudson and Smith have not touched the ball in the low post since the early going.
22nd timeout called by Michigan State. You know, a rarity. Well, first, Billy, tonight on CBS, you've heard about it. and you've read about it, but you've got to see it to believe it. Martial arts superstar Sammo Hung kicking the fun back into Saturday nights. Don't miss martial law tonight on CBS. To come into this game and all 10 starters on the floor, returning starters from a year ago. You seldom see that.
And still young clubs. You know, they're starters, but primarily were freshmen and sophomore starters a year ago.
Line with a three.
Nice step out. But again, Michigan State staying strictly on the perimeter. I think they've got to go down inside, get something, and get to the foul line some.
Amin in trouble, tie up. And that will give Michigan State the ball because of the new rule.
There's the tie up, and they don't lose the arrow. Amin, though, showing how strong he is to go on that floor and hang on to possession. I thought it was a walk. Izzo will take it, shrugs his shoulders. Let's see if he designs something to go down inside a little bit. Good overplay, more. There it is, down inside. That's where they need to go.
Hudson, nice turnaround move.
Nice move by Izzo to say, hey, let's show we can do something else other than just shoot jumpers from the outside.
Hudson 5 for 5 from the field with 10 points. Now Amin colliding. And let's review again the top 10, Billy. UConn coming in ranked number 1.
One of the games I really want to see, and that'll be tomorrow, Stanford, Maryland. And the reason I want to see that, every coach in America is just going crazy over what they've seen of Maryland so far. But I'm anxious to see a power team play against that incredible quickness that Maryland has. I think that's the quickest college basketball team I've seen of overall quickness and long arms that I've seen in college basketball in a long, long time, speaking of the University of Maryland. But what happens if they're forced to play a half-court game against a team that you know likes to bang like Stanford?
So what do you think will give?
I think the home court probably helps Maryland a little bit there, but you know, we're seeing so many great matchups, Jim, in early season college play that these coaches are finding out, like a Gary Williams will tomorrow in that game. What will he do against the power team, and how will he make adjustments?
1 of 2 by Amin after Hudson picked up his 3rd foul.
They are going down inside now. Very good move for Michigan State.
Hudson wants it back, backing in on Freeman. Freeman called for the hold. His 3rd.
What happens, teams get into a pattern. Players, because they can get the outside shot, forget about the inside game. And it really cost Michigan State. They didn't get onto the line hardly at all in the first half.
Only one time.
Right, only shot 1 free throw.
Cleves missed it. Saunders back in, Billy, which is good to see after that fall in the first half.
He walked off like he was hurting, and there was a foul, no call whatsoever. Izzo goes crazy on the sidelines, is warned to sit down, but there was no question it was a foul on the play. Love this matchup, Cleves and Amin. Bell Hamilton's not bad either.
Now Amin over Bell.
Jimmy can take it all the way to the basket. He can shoot the standstill jumper from range, and then he's got that intermediate shot.
Cleves
can't get it to fall. He can't believe it.
Foul on Michigan State, pushing off.
That was excellent penetration by Cleves, but he doesn't get it. Now watch this. Here's the intermediate game that Amin has. Elevating inside 12, 15 feet. Tough man to guard. Big East MVP tournament winner last year. Scored 92 points in these 4 NCAA tournament games. Very explosive.
Second on the team. Checking back in for Connecticut, number 23, Albert Mooring.
So Albert Mooring has come in for Amin. Give him a breather. Amin having such a good afternoon here with 15.
Amin had 4 fouls in their last ball game with almost 15, 16 minutes to go and had to sit most of the time. But you can see Jim Calhoun has to be very happy with his performance today.
That is the 4th on Andre Hudson.
And that really hurts.
They'll bring in Granger.
Because Granger, although he can take his place and his size inside, Hudson's a guy that can do a lot better job on the offensive end of the floor in the low post moves.
43, A.J. Granger.
There's that zone again, matching up on the out-of-bounds situation. You can see that Izzo's really doesn't want to use that zone against this great perimeter shooting of Hamilton and Elamine, so he's basically stayed man-to-man the whole way. Good cut, good pass.
Look pass, Bosco can't finish it. Up ahead, Klein waiting for 2.
Beautiful pass. Good concentration by Klein, too, in that over-the-shoulder catch, knowing that the defenders were right there with him. Mooring showed us a good stroke yesterday in practice. He hasn't gotten one off here in the game so far.
8 on the shot clock. Inside, Bosco. No whistle.
How about that? 2 plays exactly the same with no call on the low block charge.
Bangs it home for a 6-point lead. Lead stripped away by Hamilton, who slips. Advantage Michigan State. Klein steps in short.
Just couldn't get the good follow through on that jump shot. Tough break for Hamilton, who had made a nice steal. Hurt himself coming down.
Izzo gets an explanation. His team has possession, down 6. 1979 NCAA championship game. Michigan State collided with unbeaten Indiana State. A matchup featuring 2 of the greatest players ever to play the game, Earvin Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. In the end, Johnson and the Spartans, too much, as they cruise to a 75-64 victory behind Magic's 24 points, 7 rebounds. This season, the 20-year anniversary. Blocked by Mooring. Mooring at the other end.
I said he was impressive yesterday. There he goes back-to-back. Defensive play and then an offensive play.
Loose ball to Peterson.
Kept alive by Bell, that outstanding rebounding guard for Michigan State.
Peterson came in, gave him 24 against Duke on Wednesday. Roshmel Jones to Bosco.
Good hands.
Bosco.
Tell you, both of these teams really pushed the ball up the floor well. No foul called.
Granger misses the chippy.
You don't get a chance to get a breath.
Mooring with the bounce off the side of the rim. And how about this tempo now, Billy?
They just keep coming right at you. And they did that with Elamine and Hamilton ready to come into the game, so it shows they've got quality depth on this Connecticut club.
Timeout, Michigan State. Monday on CBS, Raymond's brother just moved into a swinging bachelor pad, and guess who was green with envy? Ray Romano stars in an all-new episode of Monday night's #1 comedy, Everybody Loves Raymond, Monday on CBS.
Jim, you were talking about Magic Johnson and showing him back in '79 with that incredible run that Judd Heathcote's club had. You know, you go back through the Michigan State book, and you see that they have only had 1 player in their history have a triple-double. Magic had 8 of them. The last one he had was in the semifinals against Penn, a 29-10-10 game. But I certainly think in the time that I've covered college basketball, not only was Magic physically talented, he may have been one of the smartest college basketball players that I've ever seen. I mean, he knew how to orchestrate a game when he arrived on campus. So blessed with all that skill, but really have an understanding of the game as well.
Belly jumper. Granger working hard. On the floor, traveling.
They took the ball down with him.
The leading scorer, though, on that championship team for Michigan State, Greg Kelser, who's also, our Greg Kelser, the all-time leading rebounder in Michigan State school history.
Well, I always do this to my buddy Al McGuire, but during that ball game, he said, if I'm starting a pro team, I don't want Bird or Johnson. Greg Kelser's the guy that would be the cornerstone of my pro team. and that's not to say that Greg wasn't an outstanding player, because he was, but another one of Al's outlandish, ridiculous comments.
Hamilton. El-Amin, right back up. That almost went in.
Boy, away from the ball. Knockdown foul of Granger. Granger gets up. Sanders gets up. Sanders is, it's good to see, as you said, Jim, he's back from that tough fall he had in the first half. But he and Granger really went after each other away from the ball. You see it right here. Gets knocked down.
Yep.
Really should have been a foul.
They got it on Saunders.
They finally got it on Saunders. There's where 3 referees see the away from the ball action. Good call.
So down 10 with 13 minutes remaining. Granger steps out, tipped up and in by Antonio Smith.
Antonio Smith.
Tremendous rebounder is Smith. Sets good solid screens.
Hamilton, quick fire, air ball.
He's not making good decisions as to when to shoot.
Kelly in traffic, push off on El-Amin.
Here we see that shot from the outside. Smith, who is so tough to body down on the inside, gets excellent position, taps it back in. As I mentioned earlier, 2 years ago was the leading rebounder in the Big Ten, and at his height, that's quite an accomplishment.
Ricky Moore returns, as does Voskuhl. Hamilton sits, as does Andrick Kleber. Here's Michigan State playing now the #1 team in the country. There have been 2 #1s this early in the season, Duke and UConn, and they got them in back-to-back games.
Well, I would say that we'll see more than 2 #1s before this year's over.
Oh, yeah.
We will not see an undefeated team. And I'd say we'd see maybe as many as 4 or 5 #1s before this thing's over.
Tough shot, Klein, fade away or off balance.
And as Jim Calhoun said, the only time you want to be #1 in college basketball is around April the 1st. Staying with that hard-nosed man-to-man. Both teams can defend you. I'd get that ball back to El-Amin, let him handle a little bit with his jump shot.
Boring. And they call Granger. Active shooting. Huskies, we've talked about how close they've been. Regional final last year to North Carolina. West Regional final loss to UCLA back in '95, the eventual champion. To Duke in '90, the Leitner shot, and back in '64 also.
Jim, I think of all of those, although they had a shot in each one of those to go to the Final Four, I think the year they had the best chance to go to the Final Four is when they lost to Florida.
That was down in Miami back in '94 in the Sweet 16.
Danielle Marshall's club. Danielle happens to be here today, but that was a situation where everything was falling perfectly for them. The only thing, they ran into Lon Kruger's club that just happened to beat them down the stretch.
There is a timeout on the floor.
Under 12 timeout. Lead is 10 again. Billy, you spoke of Danielle Marshall sitting behind the UConn bench today. There he is.
Danielle came out 1 year early as a junior. Jim, there's an example of a guy that obviously had to take the money. They offered him, what, $45 million or so. He came out behind, remember, Robinson from Purdue, Jason Kidd, then Grant Hill, and then Danielle Marshall. So he still picked up big bucks, but I really think that he come back for his senior year to mature 1 year extra. He would have really been a better NBA player than he is now, as now he's just starting to round around into an outstanding NBA player. But some guys just need that extra maturity.
Cleaves rejected by Ricky Moore.
Perfect timing by Moore. And each time Cleaves doesn't score, that confidence level goes down even more. He is now 1 for 9. You're talking about shooting under 20% in his last 4 games.
Peterson whistled for this one.
Now you watch defensive positioning here by Ricky Moore. It is sensational. He steps back, leaps right up in there, and times it perfectly. Ricky Moore, who had that outstanding freshman year, Jim, we expected him to explode offensively as a player. I think his all-around game has matured, but he had the great Big East tournament as a freshman, then got that injury that hurt Connecticut in the NCAA tournament.
3 years a co-captain here with Rashmel Jones. How often do you see a kid in college captain a team for 3 years, as they have done, Jones and Moore. Amin on the run.
Bosco keeps it alive. Good job by Bosco.
With the conclusion of this game, we will be selecting the Chevrolet Most Valuable Player from each team. Chevrolet will make a contribution to each school's general scholarship fund, a tradition for over a quarter century.
Here we see against the zone again. I try to get El-Amin open for the jumper against this zone. He's got the great range.
Good passing, Mooring. Oh.
Got a big chance with numbers here, does Michigan State.
Kelly pull up. Bell inside, though. Blocked from behind by Saunders. Kelly again. Peterson, left hand, in and in.
What a touch.
Say, it's going to spin out. That was down twice.
They had 4 on 2 numbers. They had to convert there. El-Amin without the ball is not making himself available enough. He does it when he has the ball off the dribble. But he's got to learn how to move without that ball to get that jump shot off. He just is patient and stands still too much. Here he is moving without the ball.
Fires low, drills it, 3-pointer.
See, the offense made him move without the ball that time. He has to learn to do it as well when the offense doesn't dictate it.
Peterson answers back at the other end. That's a 2-point basket.
Don't you see Peterson, Jim, being there, maybe even their leading scorer before this year's over?
Could be, but at the other end, Mooring gives UConn its largest lead. 3-pointer.
His back is hurting a little bit, but he had an excellent day of practice yesterday, and he is playing as he practiced.
Checking back in for Michigan State, number 12, Mateen Cleves, replacing Thomas Kelly.
Now Hamilton back. The 2 All-Americas on the floor are a combined 4 of 20 for the game.
Well, they're being well defended to start off with, but I think both of these guys were hurt by their summer injuries, Jim. I don't think Hamilton's anywhere near as strong as he can be, and I think in regard to Cleves, it took away an awful lot of the confidence he has with his shot between the ankle injury he had and the shoulder injury.
Here's the preseason All-America team, and Hamilton again was the top vote getter. Cleves received the 2nd most consideration.
Not to take anything away from those 5 guys, Jim, but I can name 15 players that would be in college basketball now who have gone on to the pros that would be making up probably the first 3 teams before any of those guys would be mentioned.
At least for one day, if you were just to drop in on this game, you wouldn't know which 2 are the All-Americans,
no,
would you?
You wouldn't. It doesn't take anything away from these teams. Look, Smith pulls El-Amin up by the shirt. Now he's got to get that shirt tucked back in. Referees aren't paying much attention to it. Let's see if Ed Hightower tells him to get his shirt in.
Kentucky getting a little challenge today at home. Miami within 3 in the second half. Line. Last touch by UConn, they say.
See, Jim, coming off of those screens, Cleves has got to be able to pull up and hit that jumper as he did consistently last year. He's not even looking for it now. And I'm not saying that he's lost all his confidence, but a shooter has got to be thinking shot coming off of there. He's looking to make the extra penetration, which makes him a lot easier to defend.
Well, they turn it over. Last touch by Michigan State.
Good quick hands. And even though Bell is a good leaper on the baseline, you'd have to say, why has he got the ball down there? We've known this man, Jim, to have some explosive games offensively. He's a senior now. Very capable of having a double-figure game, so it shows how deep with scores Jim Calhoun is.
He's the kind of a guy, talking about Roshmel Jones, that come tournament time, you're going to bring him off the bench, and he gets the hot hand going for a couple of weeks in March. Could be the type of player that could take him to that next step.
You're exactly right, Jim. He's the kind of guy, too, if you're scouting from the other team, you know, you would come in and say, oh, you know, you never get to him. Then all of a sudden, here comes a guy off the bench, 15 minutes, he has 12 points, and you say, you know, we never did account for his ability, but you know it's there, and Jim Calhoun knows it's there.
Freeman will shoot one more from nearby Springfield, Mass.
Jim, I think of Freeman. Reminds me when we did that ball game against Kansas here a couple of years ago. Kansas comes in riding high, powerful team. It was one of the few teams that Jim Calhoun has had in the 90s that didn't have much experience on it. Freeman played a terrific ball game that day and is now developed into a mature veteran.
Freeman with 14 to give Calhoun and company a 13-point lead.
Travis Knight.
We hate to keep harping on it, Billy, but Cleves today, 1 of 9. This comes on the heels of 3 of 17 from the field against Duke. So 4 out of his last 26 from the field to the All-American.
Well, Jim, as we said yesterday, you know, watch him in practice. He doesn't really have the good stroke going, and he doesn't have a lot of confidence right now. And that's, you know, hard to believe. We're talking about the Big Ten Player of the Year last year, preseason All-American. But I'll tell you, you know, it shows you that fine line. He was not able to be involved with conditioning this summer. He was not able to take that time to work on the shot, which is probably one facet of his game that needs the most improvement. And now he's in this situation where he's just not hitting, and it pulls up and hits one there. Shows the championship heart he's got.
Gives Cleves 5 points for the game. Brings him within 10.
Last year he had some of those unbelievably explosive second halves. He'd have to really come alive here to help his club.
Hamilton rejected. Tried to go in.
Nothing there.
Yeah, challenged Klein and Smith. 7 minutes remaining.
And as wild as we've seen some comebacks this year, there's that little pull-up jumper that Cleves last year just made a living off of.
It's coming our way.
That's about all Smith could do, is to get that ball out of there. Nobody came to help him. You can see nobody coming to help him. Smith just throwing that ball out of there, the only thing he could do, other than call a timeout to retain possession.
42, Morris Peterson replacing Andre Hudson. For Connecticut, Khaled El-Amin, Jake Bosco, and Albert
Only
Mooring.
8 turnovers for the Huskies today.
Good to see Mooring back in the ball game. He was having back spasms when he went out there. Set a double screen for him down on the baseline. Nothing there. There, Hamilton goes much stronger to the basket. That looked good.
Hamilton with 9.
Kind of a lazy drive to the basket just a few seconds ago. That one much better.
Push off on UConn. Outside, called on El-Amin. His second.
Connecticut foul number 42, Khaled El-Amin.
El-Amin and those kids that did such a great job in the Goodwill games this year. Serbiak, Elton Brand, Miller. We had them on CBS in their only loss against Puerto Rico, and you thought, well, those veteran players that were getting ready to the World Championships would feast on our college players, but the kids came through and won the gold medal.
Line with a nice baseline move.
Little intensity falling off for Connecticut right now in the defensive end.
Freeman to Bosco. What a pass.
What was so good there is Freeman kept his head up, had eye contact with Bosco the whole way when he felt the double team. How about that going left hand as Cleves?
3rd foul on Bosco.
But Jim, you love to see that good interior passing between Freeman and Voskuhl.
And Michigan State, here's the CBS Sports Line stat of the game. Michigan State will go to the line for only the second time today. For complete basketball coverage, go to cbs.sportsline.com.
Shots a little flat by Cleves.
They shoot about 17 free throws a game, and they'll exit on this trip with just 3 attempts for the day.
Well, the rest of his game, you know, he came into the game with 44 assists and just 26 turnovers. So that part of his game is there. He's given great effort on the defensive end of the floor. It all comes down to that stroke that he needs offensively to force people to play him tight so he can use that power to go around him.
First point of the day from the line for the Spartans. Down 11 with 5:35 remaining.
Ooh, there is some kind of a screen by Voskuhl.
Voskuhl and a whistle, and Cleves' shoulder.
He really got hit.
Yep, which has been a problem, a real problem. He hurt shaken by that.
Right, he hurt it in a non-athletic situation, falling down some stairs. So he did take a whack there by Voskuhl.
Third foul on Peterson.
He's holding that shoulder, Jim, at an angle that does not look good. See if we can lift that right arm up over his head.
Right shoulder is definitely drooping right now.
Yep.
Voskuhl, a 6'11" junior from the Houston area, Katy, Texas. Roger Clemens' hometown. One and one more.
When you take in consideration superior three-point shooting, primarily by Elamine by Connecticut, and big dominance from the foul line, you wonder how Michigan's as close as they are in this ballgame. Michigan State.
Michigan State led early here, 11-2, making its first 5 shots from the floor.
There's that good block out by Smith again. I guess he's all right. Dribbling that ball okay with his right arm.
Peterson
squares up on that jump shot beautifully.
Jim Burr has a call. Counts the basket.
Smith, I think, trying to get position.
Calls it on Peterson.
Did he? Well, couldn't call it on Peterson.
He number 13.
Shot.
Now they're correcting it. It's on Smith.
His third personal foul, 8th on the team.
We'll see the solid screen on Cleves as he's coming around right here. Watch what happens to him. Here he comes, Voskuhl at that 6'11". Bow! He is powerful. Cleves felt the brunt of that. What would you say Voskuhl is, 255?
At least 1 and 1 for Voskuhl. Having a productive day, 14 points, 6 out of 9 from the field. Calhoun wanting more production out of his center position with Voskuhl and on line.
Well, he's getting up there almost by himself right now as to what the two of them have done in previous games.
Under 5 to play. 12-point deficit here for the Spartans. Good move. Antonio Smith with the bucket.
Excellent footwork.
8 points, 12 rebounds for Smith.
Both teams getting the hedge move, helping out. Right there, you see it again, helping out the guards on those solid screens up top. Backdoor cut was available for Ricky Moore. He didn't set it up.
Over the top, Voskuhl, yes. The assist for Moore. Voskuhl with 17.
Really good look by Moore.
It ties his career high, 17. Peterson finds the man at Smith. Back to a 10-point deficit.
And Smith has some hands, doesn't he, Jim, in traffic? Whether it be off the boards or catching that ball in tight, he can do it. Just trading baskets now, though, is Michigan State. Now they get you in trouble in a game like this. They've got to come with some heavy defense.
Miami beats UCLA. So it's all there for the taking if Kansas State And Tennessee can win their conference championship games today.
Illegal dribble by Alabine, gets by with it.
Gets it on the baseline.
Miracle shot.
Cleaves with a three. It's way off.
Jim,
it's not like they're just right on line and short or long. They're not even the right distance.
Well,
they're way off the mark.
If you could take that shot right there and break down what he's doing wrong. He's got no elbow underneath the basketball. And there's Elamine. He can hit from the outside standing still. He's got the perimeter drive to the basket, and he has the medium range shot there. He is a scorer.
Fourth foul on Granger. How about Miami really dashing the hopes there at UCLA for the national championship?
Well, how about
game that had to be rescheduled? I mean,
how about Syracuse? Last week destroyed.
Put 66 on them.
Exactly, destroyed Miami.
So UCLA can look back at this season. I mean, as close as it can come to a national championship. Hurricane George has to reroute the game, reschedule the game.
Well, they go from Orange Bowl to what, Jim?
The Sugar Bowl. Orange Bowl today, not the kind of Orange Bowl you're thinking of, as far as a bowl appearance, but no fiesta.
But you know what? Let's not talk. You know, there's 2 games yet to be finished. Kansas State and Tennessee plays tonight. So
yeah, but you got Florida State out there in Florida that would overtake them if everybody else lost today. But UConn right now looking like the #1 team in the country, up 14. Well, with the game clock winding down and the season on the line, Richard Hamilton propelled the UConn Huskies into the Elite 8 last March in a dramatic last-second basket. Gave them the win over Washington. Here it is. Hamilton leading UConn past Washington 75-74. They met again this week in Chicago, and the Huskies prevailed there 69-48, pouring on a 27-4 run in the second half.
Can you imagine what it felt like to be Bob Bender, Washington coach? He's done a fine job out there with that program, sitting on that bench, trying to get one of his guys get off the floor, tap the ball somewhere, and it just didn't happen. Connecticut got 4 solid tries at it before Hamilton dropped it in.
We were watching that game together.
Yep. Looked like the guys were anchored to the floor there for Washington, just could not do it.
You just kept thinking time's going to run out because you're watching the ball, not the clock, and you couldn't believe they got one more shot there at the end.
Klein handling that ball outside without Bell in the game.
Oh, Voskuhl goes way out to reject Cleaves, and Voskuhl takes a big fall into the press bench.
And they'll call a timeout. Nice piece of officiating right there. Voskuhl really took a tumble.
Right into the scorer's table.
And we talked about 6'11", 255 pounds. Nice piece of officiating here to slow everything down. We haven't seen him surface yet. He's still down underneath that scorer's table. Looks like Saunders, who had a very bad fall in the first half, going to come in for him here. I hope he's okay.
Where do you hide a 6'11", 260-pound giant?
He's still, you know, he's laying down on the floor.
Yep.
Yes, he is.
Jim Calhoun came over and kind of gave a quick okay signal, but he made some play here.
He sure did. You see him getting way up in the air, blocking his shot, really hustling over to the side, giving up his body to make the play. And there he tumbles right over. He's okay. He wants to come back in the ball game. He really gave up the body there and took a slam. It's an extremely physical team, is this Connecticut ball club. I don't know if they're as talented offensively as some of the Connecticut teams in the past, at least from a versatility standpoint, but this is as physical a team as Connecticut's put on the floor.
Tonight on CBS, beginning at 8 o'clock Eastern, early edition, followed by Martial Law and Walker, Texas Ranger. That's all coming up tonight. Talking about this being a physical team, there is also quite a physical talent practicing with the UConn Huskies these days, who will be eligible for play next year. And his name is Aju Ding.
Watched him yesterday. We showed Danielle Marshall earlier. He's got a lot of those same attributes in terms of a very smooth player, plays at 6'10", can really handle the ball, has got a beautiful shooting stroke. He'll be quite an addition to this program.
2:45 remaining. Huskies up 12.
And a little spread offense right here. A little four corners action. And tell me, this isn't going to be tough to match up when you put Moore, Elamine, and Hamilton out there, all three of which can go by you. Tough to defend this four corners.
Busy football doubleheader day on CBS coming your way tomorrow. In the early game, many of you will see Drew Bledsoe and the Patriots take on Jerome Bettis and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And in the doubleheader game, many will see John Elway and the unbeaten Broncos battle the Chiefs. It all begins with the NFL Today tomorrow at noon Eastern. Klein back in. Vasco on the bench with a left hip bruise. You saw his left hip
I'll tell you
crash into the side of the table over there.
I'll tell you another thing, Jim. With just 2:38 to go, it's not that Michigan State can't win this game, but I think Tom Izzo ought to be thinking a little bit about putting some ice on that shoulder of Cleves. Every time you notice he's moving that shoulder, and it seems like it's still giving him a bunch of pain.
Loose ball lands in the hands of Klein. He slips. They call it traveling.
Well, that was just tough break for Klein. We saw Hamilton slip at about that same place earlier in the ball game. He tried to pull up. The floor just had either a little moisture there or just took his feet out from underneath him. You see it right here. He's going to try to come to a jump stop for the jump shot and just loses it. As I said, almost the same place Hamilton lost it earlier in the game.
Michigan State, when it lost to Temple, was leading by 9 with 2 minutes 10 seconds remaining. Here they're down 13 with 2:20 to go. Can they make a little comeback like Temple did on them? No, maybe an awful difficult assignment.
A little difference playing on the road. Temple had a great crowd.
Yep.
Matter of fact, I think that's one of the tougher places to play in the United States. Great enthusiasm there. John Chaney losing a tough one at Indiana today, but John, one of the first coaches to say, I'm going to use November and December, play all the best teams I can play to get my club ready. Absorbed some losses at that time, but should have a good handle on what he's capable of doing.
Ricky Moore back to the line.
And Jim, on that philosophy, advancing way down to when that committee meets on that final Sunday of selection, they always talk about that difficulty of your schedule. So some of those losses really don't hurt you. I'll tell you, a 1-point loss at Indiana in early December will not hurt you come selection time in March.
Talking about tough schedule, UConn this week will play at UMass, fierce rivalry there, and then play at Pittsburgh in a conference game next Saturday.
Well, Jim, I'll tell you a game that you'll want to watch if you get a chance to see it, and that is UConn going back out to Stanford. Remember what happened last year? Stanford came in here, obviously highly ranked, charged up, came all the way across the country outside of the conference schedule, got blown out. I wonder what happens when they get on out there to Maples Pavilion. Connecticut will have the tables turn a little bit. Nice anticipation.
Ball almost stolen by Doug Davis.
It's a solid performance by Connecticut. Exactly what Jim Calhoun would have liked to have seen from his ball club.
So they sit Cleves and Antonio Smith. Cleves out with a 2 for 15 performance today.
And he needs some ice on that shoulder.
Smith 10 points, 12 rebounds.
Here again, spreading it out. It'd be tough for Klein to stay with Hamilton. Now what he ought to try to do is get within 5 feet, get the 5-second call. Not try to steal the ball, just try to get the call.
Davis with the body bump, his first. And one thing we were talking about Cleves, he was recruited out of high school. He was quarterback up in Flint. And Florida State and Bobby Bowden wanted him to come down there and be a two-sport star like Charlie Ward. And we were talking earlier about who possibly could be kind of back in, pending the outcome of these two games tonight, SEC and the Big 12 final. Florida State's next in line. No doubt. Not Florida, Florida State.
Well, I think Cleves probably was better basketball than football. Charlie was probably better football than basketball.
1:27 to go to clean this one up. We'll be right back.
CBS Sports coverage of the road to the Final Four is sponsored by the new Chevy Silverado, Motor Trend Truck of the Year. Pennzoil, specially formulated for today's stop-and-go driving. Stop, go, Pennzoil. And by Dell. Be direct, Dell.
Back for the final 87 seconds with Ricky Moore at the line to shoot 2. UConn has outscored Michigan State by 15 at the line. Leads by 15. Make it 16.
Really a fine leader here in Ricky Moore. He has gone from point guard to a 2 guard, from a scorer to a guy, and there's Granger getting in the lane too soon. Doesn't make any difference, but Moore gives a solid job defensively. Shows great leadership for this basketball team.
Entering the lineup for Connecticut, number 31, CJ Harrison.
And as shown here, the great appreciation by his teammates, Jim Calhoun, and the fans. Solid player.
Moore with 7 points, 4 assists. Kelly stolen away. Hamilton has El Amin ahead, but he wants it all to himself. There you go. Yes, take a bow. Why not? First time UConn men's team wins a game at home, ranked #1 in the nation. 5 players in double figures for the Huskies today. Put back by Kelly.
Tom Izzo saying to his club, just play solid.
22nd timeout, Connecticut.
22nd timeout. All right, let's talk about Chevrolet players of the game. Morris Peterson, Michigan State, made 7 out of 8 from the field, and Khalid El Amin from UConn.
Well, he actually established the game, Jim, with those 3-pointers from the outside in that first half and brought Connecticut back into the game when they were down early and really set the pace for this second half. Peterson once again showing that this guy's going to be a solid scorer in the Big Ten. El Amin with 4 3-pointers today, most of those with that patented no dribble, just straight up and jumping from their range. Tough to guard.
E.J. Harrison in for the Huskies. Mooring had back spasms earlier in this half. Final 30 seconds to go here.
Just nothing there. Now, if you're Michigan State, you have to go back home, get yourself reassembled, decide where those weak points are. Don't get down in your confidence. Get ready to roll. They're going to Hawaii. Not the strongest competition that they've faced so far out there, so they ought to have an opportunity to get healthy and get confident. Tom Izzo does not want to foul here. He just wants his guys to play solid, let the clock run out.
Ladies and gentlemen, our final score, Connecticut 82, Michigan State 68.
So for Billy Packer, Jim Nance saying so long from Gampel Pavilion, where #1 UConn has defeated Michigan State 82-68. Let's go back to New York and our man Tim Brando.